If you go to Starbucks, you may have noticed, if you want non-dairy products in your coffee, there's a vegan penalty. Regular milk, no charge. Vegan products, an upcharge. And then Oscar-winning actor James Cromwell superglued his hand to a Starbucks counter. How that changed the debate on the PETA Podcast. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, the upcharge on vegan non-dairy products at Starbucks has always been a point of contention, but when Oscar-winning actor and animal activist James Cromwell superglued his hand to a counter at an LA Starbucks, the attention it got, well, it raised the debate to new levels. It exposed Starbucks as not just being anti-consumer friendly, but anti-climate friendly. It also opened the door to the way the dairy industry abuses cows. Ever hear of what the dairy industry calls the rape rack? You will look at a glass of milk in a whole new way. Still, Starbucks has not budged, which means protests will continue. PETA campaign specialist Ashley Byrne was with Cromwell in Los Angeles, and she talked to me about what happened there. We began by talking about the unfairness and the discriminatory nature of the upcharge on the PETA Podcast.
I never really thought about the phrase upcharge until PETA started using it in connection with Starbucks.
Yeah. And so when people talk about an upcharge, it's like an extra fee for doing the right thing, an extra fee for wanting vegan milk, an extra fee. And so when you are faced with that as a consumer, an upcharge is like, that's like an assault, right?
Right. Well, and it's implying that what you're asking for or what you're ordering is a luxury. I can see an upcharge for certain things, but in the case of vegan milk, of adding vegan milk to your latte, you're doing the right thing. I don't think that should be treated as a luxury, not by a business that says they encourage people to be environmentally responsible. I think this idea of an upcharge, you think you're asking for something extra, and vegan milk at this point shouldn't be that. It's so commonplace, and so many people are making that choice for the right reasons. It's just the idea of an upcharge for that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and some people would think, okay, well, if there's an upcharge, they must justify it by, well, it takes us a little more to take the vegan milk and from the real milk. We have to use our minds to figure out which bottle is which. And that is going to cost. That is a labor cost to think and reach for the right bottle over the wrong bottle. And is that I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Isn't that a justification for an upcharge? I am asking a barista to choose between the right bottle. And if I get the wrong bottle, well, I guess they won't charge an upcharge. But for getting the right bottle,
first of all, having been a barista at one point many, many years ago, I can tell you that reaching for one bottle versus another does not justify an extra charge. But also, if that were the case, wouldn't there be an upcharge for the non-fat milk or the skim milk or whatever the other dairy options are?
Aren't they doing that already?
I don't think they are.
Well, because don't give them ideas now, Ashley.
Right.
They're going to look for profit motives. Well, if you want 2% milk, we'll charge you 5% more. And that
here's the idea. Put the upcharge on the dairy milk if you're going to carry it. Put the upcharge on the cow's milk.
That could be a winner. We got to talk to that guy, the Starbucks heads, right? Howard Schultz. Howard, exactly. This is what you do. You charge for the milk. Well, clearly that was PETA was upset because they were upcharging for the wrong thing.
Exactly. We're just trying to help them make better business decisions.
Well, so when did this come to your attention? When did it come to PETA's attention that Starbucks was doing this, that they were upcharging for vegan milk?
There had been some awareness and some conversation about this going back, at least a couple of years. And possibly more, I think it was sort of, because, PETA always likes to approach a company privately first to encourage them to do the right thing before something becomes a campaign.
Did that happen here?
Of course, absolutely.
PETA went and knocked on Howard Schultz's door and say, look, Howard, you got to stop with this upcharge thing.
Right, or whoever the CEO was at the time, because I believe.
Oh, he was gone. He was gone. And then
I feel like there's been some back and forth, CEO wise.
Yeah. And so they balked. They actually said, no, this we charge. You want?
Well, I mean, it's still there. So they declined to to take the upcharge away for any of the vegan milk options.
And so this is an upcharge of how much for what milks? All the different non-dairy.
I have to say that I don't know the precise charge for each type of milk. I believe it starts at 80 cents and then goes up to at least $1, if not more.
Yeah.
I think if you're getting soy, I believe that's 80 cents. And then some of the others might be more than that.
Because if I want cashew milk, because that's all I drink is cashew milk. I got my own little almond cow and I do cashews on the almond cow, which is probably heresy for some people, but I prefer cashew milk. I insist on it. They probably charge me $5 for the cashew milk.
I don't even think they carry cashew milk.
They don't have cashew. I'm not drinking.
I don't think they do.
I'm not going to Starbucks. They need cashew.
Which is a shame because it's delicious. I'm with you on that.
Cashew of course.
So fantastic.
Well, so here we have this company saying we're sticking with the upcharge. Did people come to PETA saying, hey, you got to do something about this for us? We're the people. You got to do something for us.
The thing is that because we're seeing such an interest in vegan milks, because so many people prefer that, I think we've seen a lot of people just kind of going ahead and gritting their teeth and paying the upcharge because they wanted those options instead. But PETA realized that Starbucks is the biggest coffee chain in the world. I mean, here in New York City, I feel like there's a Starbucks on every corner, at least one, at least.
I know. And now I'm going to date myself, but in the old days, there was a Benetton in every corner in New York, and now there's a Starbucks.
Now it's the Starbucks. They took out the sweaters and they put in espresso machines.
And I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. So you're the PETA people out there. I mean, PETA members, other people who are vegans, they had to come to you and say, you got to do something about this, right?
I think people started to realize this is no longer sort of a niche specialty option. This is something that people want. This is something that people want, whether they're doing it because they're concerned about the environment, whether they're lactose intolerant, whether they've heard about the horrors of cruelty to animals in the dairy industry, or whether they just like the taste better. I'm one of many people who thinks that oat milk is the best thing that's happened to coffee in decades. It's fantastic. A lot of people just prefer it. And so, I think people started coming to PETA and saying, this isn't some niche specialty option anymore. This is the right thing. This is the right thing to do. And we shouldn't be getting charged extra for it. And then PETA realized that the company the size of Starbucks, they do have the ability to take away that upcharge. They absolutely have the ability to do this thing that's the right thing for their customers and the environment and the animals. And so they have the responsibility and the ability. Let's put it that way.
And also, by the way, before I get into this, you really should try. Oat milk is good, but cashew milk. Cashew milk. All right. So, but now here's my point. My point is, isn't it a form of discrimination too, when you say Oh, regular cow drinkers, standard, no charge. Oh, you vegans, we're charging you. You must have money to be a vegan because
It is. It is discrimination. And actually, in the case of milk, it's also discrimination because of the fact that so many people of color are actually lactose intolerant, a very high percent. I mean, really, let's be real. Human beings in general are not meant to drink milk past infancy. So lactose intolerance is actually, just incredibly widespread for all of us. But the percentages are especially high in communities of color, in African American communities,
Asian American communities that we're, lactose intolerant, generally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and so it's a form of discrimination in more ways than one, because you're actually, a lot of people who, who really not just don't want to drink cow's milk because of the environmental and the cruelty to animals, issues, they actually can't drink it. And you're charging them more for, for the option they can drink. So it is discrimination.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're faced with that, it's like in the old days when I was a kid and they first had, burgers and then they always charge more for cheese. And in your head, you're thinking, I'm just a small boy now. I'm thinking, my mom says, do you want a burger? And yeah. And I wasn't vegan. I wasn't enlightened then. But then they say, well, a cheeseburger is 10 cents more for cheese. Remember that? 15 cents more. There was an upcharge for cheese. And that,
of course.
And in my mind, forever, before I became vegan, I always thought, oh, cheese more expensive. Cheese, that's like, I'll have made it in the world if I can afford cheese.
if I can afford cheese.
If I can, so and it's wrong because I can afford the lactose intolerant reaction. I can afford the illness from eating excessive amounts of dairy. So my vegan ways have just reformed my thought there. But I can see some people now, some young vegan, thinking, wow, maybe if I can afford the upcharge, I will have made it.
Right. Yeah. If I can afford to add that non-dairy milk to my coffee. And this is the thing, obviously, of course, we don't want the vegans to be charged more. But I think one of the important parts of this issue is the fact that ultimately vegans, yes, we're going to pay more because we are not getting cow's milk. We're not going there. So we're going to pay more one way or the other. Then you have all these people who are probably kind of on the fence, and they'd probably be people who'd be very happy to add the non-dairy milk. They'd be very happy to choose soy, almond, oat. But if they have to pay more, they're not going to do it.
Right.
But if suddenly there was no upcharge and they could choose any of the milks, they probably would choose one of the non-dairy milks. And so this is actually this extra charge. It's preventing a lot of people from doing the right thing, whereas they might be very glad to do that otherwise. But right. It's prohibitive.
And here is Starbucks, standing firm, standing their ground. And here is the protesters coming in saying, that's one aspect of, trying to change Starbucks' minds. The other thing that might change Starbucks' mind is the competition. If they offer free vegan milk, what is happening on that front that is maybe pushing Starbucks, or is it having any effect at all?
Well, it should be because their competitors are starting to make these changes. And companies like Stumptown Coffee
in Oregon.
Right. And just fantastic. I think they're, a lot of people just see them as one of the best coffee companies. They took away the vegan milk upcharge. Blue Bottle now is actually defaulting to oat milk as the standard milk at a lot of their locations. And then other chains, including, let's see, actually Wawa Wawa doesn't have an upcharge for vegan milk. If Wawa can do it, Starbucks can do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
come
one
on.
would think. All right, so that there's that pressure coming from competition, but the
Right.
big pressure is coming from protesters.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
having an impact? Because this is why people have noticed it suddenly, because people are super gluing their hands to counters, including, I mean, it's one thing if I super glued my hand to a counter, they'd say, get the Filipino guy out of here. We'll have to call Public Works, get him out of here. But, if I were a celebrity, a real celebrity like James Cromwell,
That's hard to miss.
yeah.
It is hard to miss James Cromwell coming in during morning rush hour and super gluing his hand to your counter.
What was that like? You were there.
I was right there. I was right next to him. And like I said, it's hard to miss an Oscar winner gluing himself to your counter, especially when he's 6'6" or something. He is a hard man to miss. And he came in, and it was like 9 a.m. and just walked over and glued his hand to the counter, and another activist glued down next to him. And then he delivered a statement to let everyone know why he was doing it. And I mean, a sincere, heartfelt, passionate statement talking about the cows and the environment. And it was a very moving statement.
And it went viral, and people noticed it. It became a news story. And I remember first hearing about it. Oh, not just this, but about the idea of people super gluing their hands. First of all, does it really work that you super glue your hand and it sticks and you can't get out?
It does. And I can tell you from experience, because the day before we did this, I just wanted to understand a little more about
practice.
how it worked.
You're just trying to practice.
I super glued my own hand to something in my kitchen. And you know what? It works.
Really it works.
Yes. It works, and it works fast. It's the real deal. So, and it's not easy to even when you have the tools you need, it is not easy to get your hand up once you've super glued yourself down.
So James Cromwell is now still dragging around a Starbucks countertop with him wherever he goes.
Yes, he is.
So there is an antidote, clearly. I would hope.
There is.
Yeah.
Yes.
But is it something like, okay, another thing that'll date me, like they used to say about Brill cream, a little dab will do you. Is this a thing where it's a little dab, or you need a lot of super
No,
glue?
you only need a little super glue to get yourself very stuck, but it takes quite a bit. It takes quite a bit of the solution to actually get your hand up, and it takes time. You can just douse your hand, and it really takes time to get it up. So.
Well, the antidote takes time.
Yes,
but
it does.
A little bit of super glue will get you in trouble.
A little bit of super glue will get you in a lot of trouble fast, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of acetone to get your hand up. You're not going anywhere quickly.
And that's why, and not that we're doing Starbucks Protest 101 here, but if a little bit of super glue can really make you, and then they can't remove you, but they can ignore you.
They can try. And they definitely did their best at first, and obviously our issue is not with the employees, and James let them know that right away, and was just very kind and polite when he spoke to the manager and just tried to explain why we were there. He left them a card and box of vegan truffles, and we put a big tip in the tip jar, because we have no issue with the Starbucks employees. We are just doing what it takes to get the message across to the executives.
And so James Cromwell, big star, it goes viral, it becomes a news story. The effect of that in terms of either changing the public's mind or changing Starbucks' mind. How do you see it a few weeks after?
I think that so often with these issues, just awareness is the biggest obstacle. Just making people aware of what the problem is and what the solution is that we're asking for. And in this case, it was about making the public aware that, first of all, Starbucks says that they care about the environment, but cow's milk is their biggest sustainability issue. And those are their words. They have admitted that cow's milk is their biggest environmental problem. And then second of all, the fact that cows suffer so immensely when they're used in the dairy industry. I mean, they lead miserable lives. They're forcibly impregnated. Their babies are taken away. And so James Cromwell was able to thrust this conversation into the media, into the public eye, and make people aware of it. And now people are really talking about it. People who before might have been paying this upcharge without even thinking about it, just placing their order, putting their credit card down, not really thinking one way or the other, are much more aware of the conversation around whether this should be happening. They're probably much more aware now of Starbucks, competitors that are not doing this. Of course, that's going to have an effect.
Yeah, it's just the cost of being vegan, some people would say. And a lot of people they'll just go along, not trying to make waves. But when you see this happen and you go to Starbucks and already you're taking a kind of moral leap to go to a Starbucks, you're thinking, is this right? Because, maybe I should do local. Maybe I should do something that's, of the community and not some big corporate thing. And, we know that Starbucks has tried to unionize in some places, and the company has shut some of those workers down. We know that that's sort of a Starbucks by Starbucks, location by location sort of thing. So
right.
People who are trying to do the right thing about everything, and they want that vegan milk in their coffee, they go to a Starbucks, they get this charge, and I can see where their ire starts to be raised a little bit. Like,
right.
what the heck's going on here? But now let's go to the idea about milk and dairy cows. We
Right.
talked about the health issue of milk, but once again, playing devil's advocate somewhat, saying, look, the cows, you're just milking the cows using their essentially their inside this liquid that goes through them. You're not hurting the cows, are you?
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the biggest misconception about the dairy industry. We don't think about the fact that cows produce milk for the same reason that any mammal produces milk, because they get pregnant and they have babies. And that's the only reason they'll produce milk. So they have to be pregnant just repeatedly to keep producing milk. And the way they get pregnant in the dairy industry is that they're forcibly impregnated. They are placed in a device that the dairy industry calls a rape rack, if that gives you an idea of what this process is like. And then they're forcibly penetrated and inseminated. And then when they have their babies are taken from them right after birth, just taken away. And that is traumatic for them, just like it would be for a human mother. It is extremely traumatic for the mother and the baby. And there are some heartbreaking videos out there of cows, of female cows chasing trucks that are taking their babies away. I always tell people, if you want to watch a video that shows you the cruelty that's not graphic, but that will get the point across to you, just watch one of those, because you just see the desperation when their babies are taken. And this process happens repeatedly throughout their lives. They have to be kept pregnant, and so they'll keep producing milk. And then when their milk production starts to drop, when their bodies are just used up, they're killed, they're slaughtered.
They are the cows are killed after
they are
after X number of pregnancies, or
they are eventually their bodies, start to give out, and they stop producing milk, and so they're trucked to slaughter and used for hamburger, or but they are killed. And another thing that a lot of people don't know is that male calves in the dairy industry, the industry has no use for them, because they don't produce milk. So they are often used for veal, but so they are also killed. So there's this misconception that, nobody's dying in the process of, getting milk from cows. And that's not true. In the case of the males, they're dying often when they're babies because they're being killed for veal. The females lead long, miserable lives, and then they're killed as well.
Boy, if anyone just held up a glass of, well, you don't have to do this with a glass of real milk. Although if you had real milk, that would really, it would sink in. If you're meditative about the milk, maybe you have a carton of milk poured in a glass and just look at it and think about what it took to produce that. And the cow who had to be impregnated by this rape rack, and
Right.
just the process, I think you would look at that glass and you would push it away.
Absolutely. When I was vegetarian, before I was vegan, and I started reading about this, after that, every time I saw a glass of milk, I would envision a hunk of veal inside of it. I just thought, it's pain, it's death, it's suffering, it's cruelty. I think most people just have no idea.
And then conversely, if you took a glass of oat milk, or in my case, cashew milk, and you looked at it and you saw pure, clean, it's water, it's filtered water, it's nuts, there's no life, it's just goodness, and
Right?
it colors your coffee, which I don't even like. I'm a black coffee drinker because I'm a person of color, so I like my coffee. So no oat milk, no cashew milk, but when occasionally for a latte you have to,
Right.
use, and I'll always go with the vegan milk, and so it tastes good. It tastes as good or better. It's better for you, and no upcharge. Well, I guess there is a slight upcharge for a bit when I have to buy the thing that makes the milk, or you can buy one of those little, those cheesecloth sacks, and you can actually make your own vegan
You
milk,
can, yeah,
which is fun.
If you want like a fun project, you can make your own. But that's the thing. Non-dairy milk is just so ubiquitous now that you can make your own, but you certainly don't have to. It's everywhere. It's at every grocery store, every Walmart. It's at 7-Eleven.
Yeah. I was just noticing this also about vegan meat. So there's all this, fake chicken everywhere, which is good. I mean, all these multiple brands. I mean, before we had like one or two choices, and now there's like all these brands. They have a different uniqueness to them. But it's like this explosion of veganism, which is why it's so crazy that Starbucks, is on its high horse saying, nope, we're doing the upcharge on vegan milk.
It's strange because Starbucks was ahead of their time when they first started offering soy milk. When they first started offering these non-dairy options, they were ahead of the curve then. I think they could be applauded for that. And then it's like over time, they sort of, lost the momentum. And instead of being, innovators like they were when they started offering soy milk before most places did, now they're kind of behind the times because, the future is non-dairy milk, and, their competitors are saying, okay, no, we see this should be the go-to, the standard. They're kind of lagging behind.
Yeah. Is this happening just at this Starbucks in America, or is it a policy that goes Starbucks worldwide?
So that's a great question, because they have removed the upcharge in the UK, and it's some of their other international locations. They don't have the upcharge, or at least they have, they'll have one non-dairy option without the upcharge.
Yeah.
So again, we know it's possible because they can do it elsewhere.
Yeah, it's crazy that they want to like stick to their guns, stick to their milk guns in a way, especially when you have inflation at historic rates. And
Right.
you look at all the different things where the prices have gone up, and like eggs have gone up 23%, meat's gone up like 14 to 20%, and dairy's gone up. Everything has gone up, that you'd figure, wait a minute, an upcharge doesn't make sense. I mean, especially for vegan milk, maybe
Right.
that could be a marketing ploy to bring people in to say, hey, look, we're keeping our prices down. But I guess it takes a while to get through the corporate mindset
Right.
to see this. So what is the future for the protest wing of the anti-upcharge, anti-Starbucks super glue contingent at PETA?
Well, I mean, hopefully the very near future will be Starbucks coming to its senses and removing the upcharge, ideally, so that the protests don't need to continue. But if that doesn't happen, I know that the protests will continue as long as needed. So,
what about James Cromwell? Is he, after he did it? I know you said that he removed his hand from Starbucks with a little bit of difficulty, but he did ultimately extricate himself. Well, how did he feel? Did he feel like, yeah, this was worthwhile? We have to do this. We have to keep doing it.
oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, he is a real activist and a passionate one. Clearly, one great thing that did come of this is that with all the media attention, he also had the opportunity to talk to some media outlets and explain more, in a with a bit more of a calm setting about his reasoning behind doing this protest. I know that the Washington Post did a big feature on him, a big interview, and he was able to really get into some of the facts, the details. He clearly felt very strongly about this and feels that it was the right thing to do. It's undeniable that this has just thrust the issue into the wider conversation. So that's great.
All right. And not to inspire copycats, but there are people who say, well, I don't want to pay this upcharge. And it could happen, but just a little bit of super glue placed strategically somewhere.
There are worse things that people could be copying than taking action for an important issue. Yeah. I mean, I think there are so many things out there that people emulate. The best case scenario is people emulating, protesting for a good cause.
All right. So if you're a protester, it's a weekend, I'm going to go out and protest. I may not super glue my hand because I don't have enough acetate or acetone or whatever you need to extricate yourself. But maybe I just want to let them know one thing, or one fact that is the most important fact about why this upcharge is wrong. What would you say? Like if some guy or gal's a Starbucks customer, but they're just finding out about this. They're upset. They drink their coffee black like me, and they just want to give Starbucks their 2 cents. What is the one fact that they should lead with?
Cows in the dairy industry lead miserable lives where they're forcibly impregnated, their babies are ripped away from them, and then they are brutally slaughtered. Also, that their milk can be stolen and used in places like Starbucks. And that's totally unnecessary. And then since you said 2 cents, I'm just going to add one more cent.
Please.
And that is that we are facing a climate crisis, and we do not have time to kind of waffle around about taking action for the environment. And the animal agriculture industry is one of the leading producers of greenhouse gases, just among a slew of other environmental problems. And the dairy industry is just right. It's one of the biggest parts of that. Starbucks has admitted that cow's milk is their biggest environmental problem, their biggest issue. Isn't it just logical that if this is an eco-friendly company, if this is a company that cares about the environment, that they would stop punishing people who are trying to opt out of this product that's so damaging to the environment and so cruel to animals?
PETA campaign specialist Ashley Byrne on the protest over the upcharge for vegan milks and how it's not just unfair to consumers, but unfair to the cows. Go to PETA.org for more and see the link to actor James Cromwell's protest action on your show notes, where he superglues his hand to a counter at Starbucks. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. You can find me on Twitter at Emil Amok, that's EMILAMOK, or see my vlog at AMOK.com, or see my work at ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.